your television, what you get is what you got. 'Cause when they own the information, dead and home and wrong.
So we keep on waiting, waiting,
Waiting on the world to change.
We keep on waiting, waiting,
Waiting on the world to change.
It's not that we don't care, we just know that the fight ain't fair. So we keep on waiting, waiting,
Waiting on the world to change.
لم نصن صفو السماء
فلننتظر أجل الحكاية
فلنبقي ما يروي الظما وليبقى من يروي الرواية
We're still waiting,
waiting,
waiting on the world to change.
we keep on waiting, waiting,
Waiting on the world to change. One day our generation is gonna rule the population. So we keep on waiting, waiting, waiting on the world to change.
waiting on the world to change,
Waiting on the world to change. So we keep on waiting, waiting, waiting on the world to change.
waiting on the world to change.
Waiting on the world to change. Waiting on the world to change.
Morning, Arapaho. If we met us earlier in the service, my name is Pastor Jenny Bates, and I'm happy to be preaching to y'all this morning on hard conversations. And part of what hard conversations require of us is honesty. So I'm going to be honest with y'all. I'm a little bit nervous to be up here, but that is mostly overshadowed by the excitement and the joy I get to have to be with you this morning. So, like I said, and like Jessica said, we're talking about hard conversations this morning. And it's fitting, right, that this is the week of Thanksgiving, because we're about to probably have some really hard conversations. Now, those conversations may be who has the best mashed potato recipe? Should the turkey be fried or roasted? Why do we even eat turkey? And some of them will be more serious. Do I go home for Thanksgiving? Do I bring my partner with me for the first time? Do we talk about the election? This is the season when we get together with people we love, or at least like, and we have to ask hard questions. And we have to ask ourselves, am I willing to ask the hard questions? Or do we stick to awkward small talk, like how the Dallas Cowboys season is going? But that might also be a hard conversation to have. So let's maybe just take a moment and think about, how do we have the hard conversation? So if y'all will join me as we start in prayer. Dear God, thank you for the opportunity to talk about hard conversations. Thank you for listening to us when we have them with you as well. Help us hear from you this morning through my words, and may the Holy Spirit work in all of us. Amen. And so, hard conversations, like Jessica said, we don't want to have them. They're often awkward, and part of the reason we don't want to have them is because we're afraid of what we might find out, right? What's the truth I might hear if I ask the question, who did you vote for? What's the truth that might come out if I come home and have a coming out story to you and decide this Thanksgiving is the Thanksgiving I'm going to tell you that I'm queer? These are hard conversations, and they are stressful, and we don't want to have them. But the thing about hard conversations is that they can lead to hope and change. Like the song we just heard, waiting on the world to change. We're not just waiting for the world to change. We are causing the world to change when we have hard conversations. So, one of the stories in the Bible I wanted to share with y'all, there's lots of hard conversations in the Bible. Jessica talked about the one in Jonah. The whole book of Job is a hard conversation. But today we're focusing on one of my favorite stories and one I think is a great example of a hard conversation, the conversation between Ruth, Naomi, and Orpah found in Ruth chapter 1. This is a story about a hard conversation. The story begins with 3 women on the road. They are migrants. They are leaving Moab to return to Judah. All 3 women's husbands have died. Naomi is the mother-in-law. Ruth and Orpah are her daughter-in-laws. What a wild journey that must be, to be on a long journey with your in-laws. These 3 women are bound together by the reality that their lives matter less now because they are not married. And in ancient culture these women found themselves in, they only had protection when they were married. Their value was only had when they had children. And now they are unmarried widows. And they are on a journey. Naomi is the first one to realize that a hard conversation needs to happen. As she's walking with her daughters-in-law on the road to Judah, she has the realization that she cannot protect them. She cannot provide for them. So she is the one who starts the hard conversation. In Ruth 1, 8-9, Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go back to your mother's houses. May the Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with me and the dead. The Lord grant that you may find security, each of you in the houses of your husbands." Then she kissed him, and they wept aloud. The hard conversation Naomi needed to have was to tell these people she cares about, the people who are supporting her, the reality of the situation. Ruth and Orpah are Moabites. They are immigrants heading to a land where they are not welcome. They are foreigners. They are women without status in society. And so Naomi has the hard conversation to tell them, "I love you, but this is not a safe journey for you. Go home." Sometimes we need to have hard conversations, even when they hurt. I imagine Naomi was very sad about the idea of continuing on this journey alone. Orpah and Ruth had been with her so far, and suddenly they had to not be with her anymore. If you've ever been alone, you know what it's like to tell the one person who's with you, I think maybe this is the end of the road. We don't want to have hard conversations, but we have them because when we have a hard conversation, that can lead to healthiness, and that can create boundaries with family members, because you don't think you can sit through another Thanksgiving if politics is brought up at the table. Ruth is having a hard conversation that will cost her dearly, but she also loves her daughters-in-law. She knows she can't protect them. She knows she can't provide husbands for them. And so she tells them that. She is honest in her conversation. And she puts in there, too, a little bit of her own feelings, her feelings of being betrayed by God. Because of Naomi's willingness to have the hard conversation, she gives Ruth and Orpah agency to make their own decisions. She gives them the opportunity to decide what is best for them and to take that journey. Now, she does try to influence them, telling them to go home, but she still says, "Girls, make a decision. Will you go with me or will you go home?" In 2025, we will have a lot of moments when our church will need to have hard conversations and make some decisions. At Arapaho, hard conversations are not new. We have had lots of hard conversations about racism, about reproductive rights, and LGBTQ justice, but the part of hard conversations is that they continue. You don't have a hard conversation just once. You have it over and over again. Our questions we'll need to talk about are, will we stand in solidarity with our communities, with their Naomi's, Ruth's, and Orpah's? Will we stand with our widows, our orphans, the people who society have deemed as having value, not having value or worth? Will we stand with migrants who are far from home and hoping for a safe place to land? Arapaho, we are women at the crossroads. And our questions and our hard conversations will need to center around, what is our church willing to do for the oppressed? What is our church not willing to do? And what does solidarity look like? And as we have these hard conversations, it won't just be hard conversations between the people in this room. It'll be hard conversations with our broader community. Naomi fails to ask her community what they need, but just tells them what she needs them to do. We need to listen to what others tell us. We need to not be like Naomi, but make sure when we're having the hard conversations, we are not dominating the conversation, but we are giving space for others to share their truths. Part of having hard conversations is listening to the people talking without judgment or assumptions. Or, if you're like me, the need to give advice. Solidarity isn't telling people what they need. It's hearing the people's needs and responding to them as they ask. Naomi didn't ask the daughters what they needed. She told them what they needed. They needed to go home. But maybe that's not what Ruth and Orpah wanted. When we allow people to be part in conversation with us, we're not only in conversation with the person sitting next to us, we're also giving them the opportunity to have a hard conversation with themselves. Naomi presented the hard conversation to the women, and she also said, I want you to go home. That is what I want you to do. But then the women took what Naomi wanted and decided what they were going to do. They had to have hard conversations about themselves, about what this journey would look like for them. What could they provide? What could they offer to Naomi? Could they help her or could they not help her? They were the only ones who could make that decision for themselves. And they did make decisions. And what I love about this story is that Ruth and Orpah made two opposite decisions, but both those decisions are good. Orpah decides that what is best for her is to leave. In Ruth 1:14, they wept aloud again. Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye. Now, a lot of people read Orpah's actions as selfish. She just abandons the other two women and goes home. But this text is a continuation of why hard conversations are hard. Hard conversations lead us to make painful decisions sometimes. If we read back, Orpah had already been on this journey. She didn't abandon Naomi at the beginning. She actually journeyed with her. She weeps multiple times in the story and initially refuses to leave. She doesn't want to leave Naomi. But then she realizes there's nothing I could do for Naomi. And so she leaves with a kiss and with tears. Orpah had the hard conversation within herself. She realized she can't protect Naomi, and Naomi can't protect her. If she's going to go ahead on this journey, she realizes that Orpah may be a burden. And the best thing that Orpah can do is to leave. Not because she wants to, because she realizes this is where their journey together ends. She knows her capacity and her ability, and she knows that caring for Naomi is beyond that. In our time, many people leaving is the best option they can make. I've spent the past few weeks after the election talking with LGBTQ members, mostly trans and non-binary adults, about what the future will hold for them. Most of them have let me know they are going to leave Texas or they are going to leave the United States entirely. Many of these folks are not selfish. They have spent many years fighting and doing activism for trans and queer people. They have a deep love, strong roots, and a chosen family like Ruth, Naomi, and Orpah had. They've come a long way on this journey to our Judah, our place of hope. And it hurts to leave. All of these conversations usually end with tears. But the reality is a lot of these people know I'm at my limit. I'm at my capacity. My safety matters. The safety of my family matters. And I can't go on. People make hard decisions for themselves, just like Orpah did. And many of us leave with kisses and tears, but also with hope that by us leaving, maybe we have a brighter future, and the people we leave behind will also have a brighter future too. The other person in this story who has made a decision after a hard conversation with herself is Ruth. Ruth makes the opposite decision of Orpah. She decides to stay. She decides that her loyalty and her safety are not separate from the safety of Naomi. She does not only agree to stay, but she promises solidarity with Naomi. In verse 16, do not press me to leave you, to turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord do thus to me, and more as well, if even death parts me from you. Ruth had her hard conversation with herself. She calculated her safety. She calculated what she can do. And she decided the best solidarity she could provide Naomi was to be with her in all of the good and the bad. Ruth didn't make this decision without understanding the consequences. She lists them pretty clearly here. If you die, I will die. She's honest with Naomi. She says, I will stay with you. I will be in solidarity for you. She declares and clarifies, what does it mean if I stay? Arapaho, if we proclaim to be like Ruth, to be people who will be in solidarity with those that are oppressed, with women, immigrants, LGBTQ people, we need to be ready to live into that promise like Ruth was. We need those to understand that those people are our people. We will lodge where they lodge. We need to be honest and truthful in asking of our neighbors what we need, and we need to listen to them when they tell us what they need. If we want to be like Ruth, we have to make their God our God. And we will have to live in community together like we are all beloved children of God. Are we ready and willing to do that? That's part of the hard conversations we each need to have with ourselves. Are we ready and willing to help our church be the place for all people, or do we need to take in stock our own safety and the safety of our families? We need to consider everything that is as it is laid out, and we need to be honest with one another of what to expect and what we can provide. We need to be honest and ready to answer the question of love for our neighbor. Can we do it? Love for ourselves. Are we doing it? And are we loving God? These three women have these hard conversations in a relationship of love and care. That's what allows hard conversations to happen. They love and trust each other. They've already been on this journey together. They've probably faced cold nights, bad weather, loneliness on the road. They've already been challenged and have come together. Pastor Jonathan offered last week, hard conversations deepen our relationships and show us the depth of our love for one another. Naomi trusted Ruth because Ruth's promise came from a deep of place love. Orpah could leave because she trusted and loved Ruth and Naomi enough to do what was best for them and for herself. We need to make sure when we enter into hard conversations, they're not coming from places of fear and anger. That's part of Naomi's problem. Naomi is so afraid. She doesn't even have the ability to think about what the other women want. We need to come from these hard conversations to them with God's deep love for us. Hard conversations without love at the center mean we can't do them properly. We can't be vulnerable. We can't be honest because we're scared of what this person across the table is thinking from us. If I am not safe in a conversation, I'm going to have all kinds of assumptions of what the person across the table is thinking from me. When I have hard conversations about LGBTQ safety with people, I have to make sure I can trust them at all, that I can tell them that I'm part of this community. I have to trust that they care enough about me that they want to have a hard conversation and to change. Or on the other hand, if I come to a conversation angry, I'm not really going to listen to the person across from me. If I sit at the Thanksgiving table with a family member and all I can think about is the names they used to call me when I was a kid, if I'm sitting across from my cousin, I'm not going to think about what's best for them. I'm just going to think about how can I make them feel bad too. While we are in these places and having these hard conversations, we have to come from love because that's what helps us make the best decision for all involved. We see that in the story of Ruth and Naomi and Orpah. Spoiler, at the end of this story, Ruth gets married, has a child with Boaz, and Naomi is brought into the family, and those two women get to live safely. Because they had a hard conversation on the road, they were able to live into a future of hope. This brings me to another hard conversation we need to have. We've had one with our community now, we've had one with ourselves, and the last one is a hard conversation with God. God asks a lot of us: love your enemies, love your neighbors, to care for the poor and widowed and oppressed, and we need to have hope, and we need to trust that God is with us in that. So that means we may have to ask God, why now? Why me? Why any of this? What am I supposed to do? I am powerless before this all-consuming power of politics or of religion or of financial power. And what God asks us to do when we have those questions is to say, remember first that I love you. Remember second, I ask you to love your neighbor. And remember third, hope that's unending, that comes to us as we prepare for Advent from the birth of Christ. I know some of us are taught not to question God, so that might be a little lot for you to think about questioning God. But we're not alone in our questions. Naomi also questions God, or at least she calls out enough that she's angry with God. In verse 20 through 21, call me no longer Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt bitterly with me. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi when the Lord has dealt harshly with me and the Almighty brought calamity upon me? If Naomi can bring God to task and say, why these things, then we should be able to do it as well. Why should we not be able to take our sadness, pain, and anger to God? We have to be vulnerable to God in our hard conversations, just as vulnerable as we are with other humans. God doesn't have the same societal pressures or cultural rules we have to follow. So we can find hope in talking with God about our sorrows. So I've given you all lots of information about why we need to have hard conversations. And I know some of you are like, okay, great, Jenny, now you told me I gotta go do this, but you've given me no information on how to have these hard conversations. Thanksgiving is in 3 days. Do you have anything for me? Thankfully, much wiser people than me have been thinking about this for a very long time. And so I've got some tips and ideas for you to take with you as you head out this Thanksgiving. The first one I have is come to your hard conversations with honesty and vulnerability, and expect that from the person you're talking to in return. My next one is come open-minded. Be prepared to learn something new. Set aside your judgment and assumptions, and actually hear what the person across from you is telling you. The next one is know yourself. Be aware of how you feel before starting the conversation. Is this the right time? Know how you may react to certain words, and know your boundaries, and know how you will end this conversation if your boundaries are crossed. Listen to what is actually being said. Don't spend time thinking of a rebuttal or thinking of all the fact-checking going on in your brain. Don't think about what's the next great advice you're going to give them, or when are we going to eat Thanksgiving dinner finally? Oh my gosh, it's been all day. Give space for others to speak. Use I statements. This is when you are talking with a person, you say, I feel, I think, I've experienced. Your experiences, feelings, and thoughts are valid. You don't need to prove them. And you can also not speak for other people. Remember in these hard conversations that you are talking to a beloved child of God, even if you disagree. But also remember that you are a beloved child of God. Have patience. Not every hard conversation leads to immediate change or action. In the story of Ruth and Naomi, they had still a very long journey ahead of them before Ruth was able to be married and have a child. Give space to uncertainty and silence to allow for the processing of ideas. But in that patience and that space, always have hope that something will happen because of the conversation. And then lastly, thank the person for their vulnerability and time. Conversations are hard. Having them involves courage and hope from all involved. If you want to learn more, there's a great series from the United Methodist Church on courageous conversations. They have it broken down by topic, and it gives you tools and ideas of how to have courageous conversations in churches and in communities. It's not easy to have hard conversations. I am terrible at it. My parents can tell you. And sometimes we miss out on growth and learning and the opportunity for change because we're so afraid to have the hard conversation. But when we have them, we can see fruits of time and love that is sown in the conversations. Ruth and Naomi grew closer and found hope because of their hard conversations on the road. We can find solidarity, compassion, and hope for a future of love and care when we are willing to have hard conversations about what we need and what our communities need. Our church can be a place of love, hope, and solidarity if we are willing to have the hard conversations with each other, ourselves, and with God. So join me in prayer. Dear God, thank you for the ability to have hard conversations. The relationships which we have that are centered on love allow us to have hard conversations so we can be clear about what we can do for each other and what we can't do. Help us have the wisdom and courage to have hard conversations, the ability to move towards a future of love and care for all. We ask that you stay with us along this journey and remind us that everyone we converse with is a beloved child of God, and expand our capacity to love and care for them. Amen.
Amen. Well, I want to say a few words about this next song that I was asked to sing this morning. Whenever I hear this song, I think of Phil Fragapane, a friend of mine for over 50 years, which is even more amazing when we're both in our 40s, but that's another thing entirely. But to Jenny's point, we've had a lot of hard conversations, so Phil, if you're out there, thank you for all those. So. Trouble and you need a helping hand, and nothing is going right. Close your eyes and think of me, and soon I will be there to brighten up even your darkest night. You just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running to see you again. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, hey, all you gotta do is call, and I'll be there, yes I will. You got a friend. You got a friend. If the sky above you should turn dark and full of clouds, and that old north wind should begin to blow, keep your head together and call my name out loud, and soon I'll be knocking upon your door. You just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running to see you again. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, hey, all you got to do is call, and I'll be there, yes I will. Hey, ain't it good to know that you've got a friend? 'Cause people can be so cold. They'll hurt you and desert you, and they'll take your soul if you let them. Don't let them. Everybody sing it with me. Call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running to see you again. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, all you got to do is call, and I'll be there, yes I will. You got a friend, you got a friend, you got a friend, you got a friend.
Will you pray with me? Loving and most gracious God, you've been with us today as we've heard your call to be open and vulnerable, to really ask ourselves where we are willing to be, who we are willing to be. There's no denying it, God, that whatever we decide, there is no changing that we are your children. And that through Jesus, you have taught us how you want us to be in this world. Jesus, who embodied all of the prophets and all of the stories and all of your image, including having those conversations that are difficult. God, we come to you knowing that you are not just asking us to wait for the world to change, but to be the friend, ask the hard questions, and move towards peace. Our lives, God, are intertwined with each other. And in this week especially, help us to bring peace to the tables as we break bread, to bring peace to our conversations as we challenge each other in a loving and gracious way. And know, God, that you tell us if ever we are down, you are there. If ever we are down, look to our friends here. God, we know that there are times that we will disappoint, that we won't have the conversations, but there are times when we can be lifted up and take that deep breath, knowing that you are with us, that we can help to transform relationships and transform the world. Be with us, God, in the name of the Christ who taught us to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Thank you, Kathy. Have you ever been at work and realized you're doing everything wrong? I'm realizing right now that my notes are over there, and I told Brett before this just to follow me, but Brett, if you could actually lead me, that'd be helpful. Giving Tuesday is not this Tuesday, but it's next Tuesday. It is after Black Friday, so right, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Black Thursday might be the Cowboys game this Thursday. So Giving Tuesday is a opportunity that we use around here to invite for end-of-year giving. And so if that's something that you are considering prayerfully, you should be receiving a letter in the mail over this week and giving you an update on kind of all the initiatives that we have going on around here. And so we would appreciate you taking a look at that letter, and if you would be interested in giving, you can certainly contact the church office or give online. It's also not this Sunday, but next Sunday begins Advent. And so with that, one of the things that we do to help support Dobie Pre-K in many of the ways that we do is we do an angel tree. And so there will be an opportunity both in person in our lobby and then online as well for you to sign up and support a family at Dobie Pre-K. You essentially purchase the gifts that they ask, and it helps them have a great Christmas. And so you'll be hearing more about that as we go. Another way that I'm not doing my job very well is if you've gotten the newsletter in the last few weeks, you've noticed that this says Wednesday, December 11th, but the newsletter says Monday, December 11th. So I'm going to have a real heart-to-heart with myself and try to figure that out. I don't seem to be able to get that right. But it is actually Wednesday, December 11th. The Chosen is a Christmas story. It's a movie about the birth of Jesus. And so we invite you to that on Wednesday, December 11th at 6 p.m. in room 40. You can bring snacks or food as you wish. And then lastly is a Christmas concert that will be Sunday, December 15th at 5 o'clock in the sanctuary. This is, our choir has been prepping for this with Terry's leadership, and this will just be a nice evening. There will be caroling, there will be singing and music playing and all fun Christmas things. So we invite you to come to that. That will be in person only. So if you need to make plans for that, please make note of that. So again, that'll be Sunday, December 15th at 5 o'clock. And you can learn all about this stuff by signing up for our newsletter, which is at arapahoumc.org/newsletter.
So it shouldn't be confusing that this is a very busy time. We had 4 announcements today, 4 invitations. And those invitations are ongoing. Last week, last Sunday night, the youth and about 10 other people got together, and based on your contributions and your donations, we were able to purchase and assemble 35 UMCOR buckets that we were able, thank you Sherwoods, for transporting those all the way to Spring Valley United Methodist Church. And from there, they will be sent to the UMCOR depot, which is where this logistical miracle happens, and all of these things are put together and put to use. That's in Baldwin, Louisiana. So all of this is important and part of our work as disciples of Christ. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your generosity. You know how you can continue to do that. Aaron mentioned it about the year-end staff giving, or the year-end Giving Tuesday, or just whatever your heart is calling you to do. We appreciate each bit of that. So if you'll go to arapahoumc.org/donate, you'll find all of those ways that you can donate and to what funds. Thank you.
Let us stand together as you are able as we sing number 383 in our hymnal. This is a day of new beginnings. We'll sing verses 1, 3, and 5.
Friends, receive this blessing as you go. As we go out into a day of new beginnings, may you always remember that your voice matters to God, and may we use that voice to share God's love with our great world. May you go in peace, and may the stranger in you meet a new conversation partner and friend, and always remember that you are God's beloved. Amen. Amen.